Handan, China. Spring of 2007. A city neither vast nor small, caught between industry and dust, where the night smelled faintly of iron and gasoline. Streetlights hummed weakly over cracked sidewalks, and beyond them the great concrete shell of the Agricultural Bank of China branch loomed like a fortress built on routine. To most who passed by, it was just another bureaucratic building, gray, square, faceless. But to two men inside, it was the answer to every dream they'd ever dared to have. I've thought often about that building, about how ordinary it looked, because that's the thing about great crimes. They rarely announce themselves with thunder or blood. Sometimes they grow quietly, in fluorescent corridors, among people you'd never suspect. Inside the bank, the hum of counting machines and the shuffle of ledgers set the rhythm of daily life. Money arrived in armored vans, was weighed, logged, stacked, locked. The vault was a place of silence and steel, thick doors, coded locks, a smell of machine oil and old paper. And the man who stood closest to that vault, night after night, was Ren Xianggao, a security guard with a calm face and the kind of invisibility that comes from years of predictability. He wasn't extraordinary. He wasn't dangerous. He was just there, the man you passed every day without remembering his face. But sometimes in that silence, a thought can grow like mold. Ren's thought was simple. What if all this money could be mine? He wasn't a mastermind, not at first. He was just tired of debts, of small paychecks, of watching money move endlessly through his hands, without a single yuan sticking to his skin. And somewhere along that fatigue, something broke, or maybe something awoke. Ren found an ally in another guard, Ma Xiaozhong, younger, restless, eager to believe in shortcuts. The two shared long shifts in the dark, guarding the vault that held more cash than they'd ever see in a lifetime. And under the dull hum of fluorescent light, temptation became planned. They learned the vault's rhythm, like a song, when the audit officers came, when the cameras turned, how the safes opened in sequences, how supervisors trusted those who seemed most loyal. Every small piece mattered, and Ren took note of them all. The idea wasn't to rob the bank violently. No guns, no alarms. It was subtler than that, to steal from within, using the trust of the institution itself. That was the brilliance of it, and the horror. The Agricultural Bank's branch handled vast sums of cash for the region's rural industries, and each week, millions of yuan passed through those steel doors. Ren realized that the automated cash-counting machines could be tampered with, their numbers manipulated to hide small discrepancies. And small discrepancies, tiny enough to go unnoticed, could accumulate. One night while Ma kept watch, Ren slipped a bundle of bills from a counted stack into his jacket. The vault swallowed the sound. He didn't take much, just enough to test the theory. The next morning, the books balanced. The cameras showed nothing unusual, and Ren felt a thrill so pure it almost frightened him. That was how it began. One small theft in a place built on absolute trust. Within weeks, their system evolved. Ren learned which records could be delayed in filing, how to sign off on shipments before the cross-checks arrived. And as they refined the process, the sums grew. They didn't steal bundles. They stole bricks of cash, timing each extraction to coincide with internal transfer. But greed is a disease that feeds on silence. The first time they counted their haul, Ren and Ma spread the cash across the floor of a rented room. Piles of 100 yuan notes glowing red under a naked bulb. It was intoxicating. They'd taken more than 200,000 yuan, and the ease of it made them feel invincible. Ren stared at the money and said almost to himself, "We could be rich beyond imagining." That night, neither man slept. As weeks passed, the small thefts snowballed. In April 2007, Ren realized that their hidden deficit had crossed 1 million yuan, still invisible to auditors. By May, emboldened and reckless, he decided to go further. Using his position as the night security supervisor, he gained unauthorized access to the main vault, removing 51 million yuan in cash, nearly $7 million. It was one of the largest inside jobs in China's banking history. Yet when the sun rose over Handan, the vault appeared untouched. The morning shift clocked in, the machines hummed, and the illusion of order held. Ren and Ma faced a new problem: how to make stolen cash legitimate. China's banking systems were tightly controlled, and moving millions in physical currency was almost suicide. But Ren's logic was warped by adrenaline. He believed he could gamble the money, win back enough to replace the stolen funds, and then quietly return the rest. He traveled to Changsha, more than 1,000 kilometers away, carrying duffel bags heavy with cash. Casinos were illegal, but underground lotteries thrived, and Ren found one easily. He bet furiously, losing hundreds of thousands in nights that blurred into feverish dawns. The plan that once seemed elegant dissolved into panic. I can almost picture him, hunched over a lottery ticket, sweat shining under harsh fluorescent light, chasing the impossible arithmetic of redemption. Each loss deepened the hole, each gamble tightened the noose. By the time he returned to Handan, most of the money was gone, and Ma Xiaojun, his partner, was terrified. To keep the illusion alive, Ren stole again, taking another 18 million yuan from the vault to replace what he'd squandered. But by then, auditors had begun to notice irregularities, small timing mismatches, unexplained documentation gap. It was only a matter of time. When the first internal review began, Ren smiled politely, confident in his understanding of the system. He'd been part of those very checks before, but what he didn't know was that the branch had been quietly tipped off about suspicious activity. Surveillance logs were re-examined, accounting chains reconstructed, and the numbers began to tell their silent story. By April 16, 2007, the illusion collapsed. Investigators discovered massive discrepancies in cash storage. Vault logs were cross-checked, and Ren's access patterns stood out like blood on snow. The man who'd once walked unseen through those corridors was suddenly the most wanted figure in China. When the alarm was finally raised, it wasn't with sirens or panic, it was with quiet disbelief. The auditors double-checked their numbers, hoping they'd made a mistake, but the sums refused to align. 69 million yuan was missing, more than anyone could comprehend. Inside the gray walls of the Handan branch, silence settled like a storm waiting to break. I remember reading that first report. The language was clinical, cash discrepancy under investigation, but between the lines, you could feel the tension of a system cracking under its own trust. Ren Xianggao didn't show up for work that morning, neither did Ma Xiaojun. Their absences, initially dismissed as routine, soon grew ominous. When investigators opened Ren's locker, they found his uniform neatly folded, his security badge still attached, and the faint smell of cigarettes lingering like a ghost. It was as if he'd simply stepped out for air and vanished. The Ministry of Public Security launched one of the largest manhunts in recent Chinese history. Airports were notified, highways patrolled, border checkpoints flooded with alert. Every movement of cash, every suspicious purchase, was scrutinized, and in the background, whispers spread. 2 bank guards had stolen a fortune and disappeared into thin air. But Ren hadn't disappeared completely. He was running, yes, but not wise. He and Ma fled first to Guangdong province, carrying duffel bags stuffed with cash. They checked into cheap motels under fake names, hiding the money beneath loose floorboard. Ren believed he could still fix it, that somehow if he won big enough, he could repay what was missing and erase his crime. But reality by then had turned into a spiral he couldn't climb out of. At first they stayed together, Ren the leader, Ma the follower. But paranoia corrodes alliances faster than greed ever can. They began to argue about money, about trust, about escape. Ma, jittery and impulsive, wanted to flee abroad, maybe Vietnam, maybe Thailand, anywhere beyond the long reach of the Chinese state. Ren refused. You don't run, he told him once. You fix what you break. But Ma didn't believe him anymore. They separated after a week. Ren took a portion of the cash and boarded a train south, changing compartments twice to lose potential tail. Ma went in the opposite direction, toward Hubei province, a decision that would seal his fate. Meanwhile, investigators pieced together the story with terrifying precision. They traced Ren's gambling trail, uncovered CCTV images, and followed receipts from underground lottery den. The realization hit them hard. The thieves weren't professionals. They were desperate men who'd made a stupid, brilliant, self-destructive mistake. On April 18, 2007, Ma Xiaojun was found hiding in a rural guest house, surrounded by stacks of crumpled yuan. He didn't resist arrest. When they asked him where Ren was, he looked down at his hands trembling, ink-stained, and said, he thinks he can still win it all back. Ren, meanwhile, was unraveling. He drifted through small towns, sleeping in bus stations and back alleys, carrying what remained of the money in a canvas sack. His face appeared on television screens and newspapers across the nation, a ghost made visible, but he was clever enough to stay one step ahead. He paid for meals in small bills, avoided banks, and spoke little to anyone. Still, something inside him had shifted. The confidence that once fueled his plan had turned into obsession. He couldn't let go of the belief that luck, the very thing that had led him astray, might also save him. He began gambling again, small, secret bets in illegal dens, hoping for a miracle. But miracles are never cheap. Within days, Ren lost nearly everything. The money that had once seemed endless evaporated like mist, and with it went the illusion that he was in control. The hunt closed in. Police traced his movements through phone records, intercepted letters, and even followed his known gambling contacts. Each clue drew the circle tighter. By April 19, Ren was spotted in Haikou, Hainan province, more than 1,500 kilometers from where it all began. Surveillance teams descended on the area, combing through every possible hiding place. It was a humid night when they finally caught him, at a small internet cafe near the harbor, staring blankly at a flickering computer screen. He didn't fight, he simply turned and said, almost softly, "I was going to win it back." When they arrested him, he had hundreds of thousands of yuan still stuffed in his bag, the last fragments of a fortune that once made him feel untouchable. Ren and Ma's capture sent shockwaves through the country. The Agricultural Bank of China heist wasn't just another robbery, it was an indictment of human weakness, the story of two ordinary men who had everything to lose and nothing to control. During interrogation, Ren confessed in painful detail. He described every step of the plan, every withdrawal, every sleepless night. He spoke with the calm of a man who'd already accepted his fate. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," he said. "I just wanted to change my life." But change, it seemed, had its own price. The trial in 2008 was swift and unforgiving. Both men were found guilty of embezzlement and theft. In China, crimes of this magnitude are treated with the utmost severity, not merely as thefts, but as betrayals of state trust. On April 1, 2008, Ren Xiaogao and Ma Xiaozhong were executed by firing squad. Their story ended not in glory, but in silence, a cautionary tale, buried beneath bureaucracy and the relentless pursuit of order. But the echoes remain. I often think about Ren's final words, whispered before his execution. "If only I'd stopped when I still could." Maybe that's the cruelest truth about greed. It blinds you to the moment when turning back is still possible. In the end, what began as the greatest bank heist in China's history became something smaller, sadder, and infinitely more human. The story of two men chasing luck until it devoured them whole. And somewhere deep beneath the vaults of Handan, I imagine the hum of the machines continues, counting, stacking, recording, the rhythm of a system that outlives everyone who dares to betray it. The vault remains sealed, the city moves on, and the question lingers like smoke in the air.